welcome back to the Fish Stripes YouTube channel, and we are as well on Twitter and Twitch. My name is Kevin Barrar, joined with Christian and William from Fish Bros Podcast. How are you guys today?
Good. Thank you for having us. Appreciate it.
Today we have some great news, and we also have a new series, Marlins versus the Chicago Cubs. Last time the Marlins were in Wrigley Field, the Marlins clinched they advanced to the next round of the playoffs, winning their first playoff series since 2003. Let's get to the biggest news, though. Miguel Rojas and Cody Portitt are back. Isan Diaz and Lewis Brinson have been sent down to the minor leagues. Christian, what do you think about these moves that the Marlins have made?
I think they were definitely the right moves and inevitable, to say the least. Isan wasn't performing. Brinson wasn't performing. What are you going to choose? The two leaders coming back or the two career minor leaguers, essentially?
Yeah, what do you think, William, about these moves?
Of course, I'm Brinson all the way, so it was sad seeing him go. But, I understand it because Isan was just terrible. Never want to see that again. And, Brinson, there's just so many better options than him at this point, and it had to be done. So, yeah.
Yep. So, as I said, the Marlins face the Chicago Cubs, a team that has just absolute superstars, Joc Pederson, Chris Bryant, Javier Baez, Anthony Rizzo, Wilson Contreras. That's only the top 5 players in their batting lineup, followed by other players like Zach Davies, the pitcher tonight, Ian Happ. So let's talk a little bit about the Chicago Cubs later, but let's go into the starting pitching matchup tonight, which is Cody Portitt making his return, making his 6th start. He has a record of 2-2, 3.75 ERA. What do you guys think about Cody Portitt?
I think Portitt has been a very nice surprise. He definitely stepped in when the Marlins rotation was pretty much on their last legs. So he's been a nice surprise.
Yeah, for me, the only thing with Portitt is I just am praying that he doesn't become the next Yamamoto, where he starts off really well and then just starts sinking and then never recovers from that.
Yeah, I agree. Portitt has been one who as well has made a huge impact in the rotation when no one expected it. And the point where the Marlins really didn't have anyone. They didn't have Eliezer. They had Gio Gonzalez that retired. So it was a moment where the Marlins just were desperate. They brought this guy up, and he's been productive for the team. I mean, he's still on this roster. And you also have to think, guys like Braxton Garrett didn't work out this first time up. Daniel Castano wasn't working as well. Then you have a guy like Zach Thompson who as well had worked out. So it's good to see these pitchers as well working out, especially a guy like Portitt who has made his name, has made a mark and has made his name up there to stay on this rotation as a 4th or 5th pitcher. And when we go to the other team side, the Chicago Cubs, we look at Zach Davies, who's pitching for this team tonight. He was he was traded to the Chicago Cubs in the offseason. He has a record of 4-3, 4.01 ERA, 43 strikeouts, 147 whip. What do you guys think about Zach Davies, and how do you think he's going to take this Marlins lineup tonight, Christian?
Just based off recent history with slow-throwing pitchers, the Marlins don't fare very well against slow throwers. But I think Davies isn't going to really, in my opinion, I don't think he's going to shut them down. He's a big movement guy. He's not a big strikeout guy. Like you said, 43 strikeouts and how many starts, like 12, I think, 12, 13 starts. Yeah. So he's not a big strikeout guy. He's a ground ball pitcher. He's kind of like Sandy, if you will, just throwing 12 miles an hour slower. But I don't think anybody in this Cubs rotation is going to blow right by the Marlins.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And what do you think about Davies, William?
I've liked Davies for a little while, but he's at a point where his career where he's just like number 5 starter, replacement level. So hopefully the Marlins can do something with that.
And we look at this Marlins lineup tonight. I think the biggest name in there is Miguel Rojas, who's making his return. I mean, this is a guy who I think the Marlins have needed for a long, long time. I mean, what do you guys think about Miguel Rojas' return, and what are you guys expecting from him?
I'm expecting some offense out of him. We need that desperately. He's been missed severely. I think Jazz has held up pretty well in the shortstop role, despite his few errors, but that's going to come from going from second base to one of the most important positions in the field. So Mickey's glove and his bat are definitely going to be very well received.
you see, with me, it's not really about Miguel Rojas offensively that worries me. It's the fact that he's finally back in the clubhouse, giving his energy to everyone, inspiring everyone. Because when you look at the most recent homestand, he was in the dugout, and the Marlins were playing well, and they go back on the road, and they're just, you know. So hopefully he can be a little bit of a spark for them.
Yeah, man, I've said it many times. Miggy's a guy who's the captain. He's the leader of this team. It's very much well known. And this is a guy who, before he came out with an injury, he was batting .275. He was having a good season. 3 homers, 16 RBIs, 4 stolen bases. This is a guy who I think the Marlins truly needed back. And Jazz was struggling at the shortstop position defensively. A lot of dropped balls. He was dropping a lot of them. So it's something I think the Marlins, it benefits Jazz and it benefits the Marlins in general. Let's Jazz go back to second base where he's more comfortable. And it brings back Miguel Rojas, who is just a great defensive shortstop. He makes a lot of good stops when they're needed, and we see them. I mean, when I make these top 5 plays for the Marlins, he's always in there with a great defensive stop. And then we have Cody Poteet. We already talked about him. With the roster moves, Isan Diaz again gets moved up. So I see Eli hopping in here today.
Well, I'm sticking in here about Poteet. A few things. I mean, one is how crazy it is that he's back. I mean, he only got hurt 2 weeks ago with an MCL sprain. I mean, who does that? They come back in 2 weeks from an MCL injury with no rehab time at all, no rehab appearances. He was, I guess, traveling with the team and kind of like pitching bullpens on the side. I just need to note how sneaky that was. Like, I don't think anybody saw him as the starter tonight. Zach Thompson was lined up for it. They could have done a bullpen game because all the relievers were well rested for the past couple of days. I just think we should shout out Poteet for whatever this is. We'll have to see how he looks, but this is still pretty freaky that he's even available to start in the first place.
Yeah, I was not expecting this at all. I didn't really know who the starting pitcher was going to be until maybe an hour or two before. And then I see the tweet, it's Poteet. I was like, oh, wow, he's back. I didn't really expect him to be back. So shout out to Cody Poteet for making a good push and coming back. I do want to talk a little bit about the last series. The Marlins lose all 3 of them to the St. Louis Cardinals. What do you guys think went wrong in that series for the Miami Marlins? I mean, I will say the bullpen did choke the games, especially Yimi. That last game was Sandy. It was just a tough one to lose. He pitched the full game. He had a good game. And he just couldn't finish it off in the 9th inning. But what do you guys personally think about that series against the Cardinals?
I think it all comes back down to the Marlins' biggest season struggle, their offense. Their offense has been too inconsistent. Some days, the pitching has always been there. The starting rotation has been solid. The bullpen is solid until they come down to those one-run games where they're in a save opportunity. But you can't be putting the bullpen in that many one-run save opportunities, 2-run save opportunities, and expect them to come out on top every time. The offense has to be consistent. They have to put up runs. 3 runs isn't going to cut it in the big leagues. It's not going to happen, especially with the lineup with the Cardinals. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, I completely agree. That's maybe the biggest struggle for the Marlins, and this is why I think the Marlins need to address this. I mean, they bring in Jesus Sanchez. I mean, a guy who I think we're for sure going to talk about, but I do want to hear a little bit about what William has to say about the Cardinals series, a series that the Marlins desperately had to win, which they didn't. So,
for me, the huge letdown of the series was the defense, because a little bit about me, I work most of the time, so I'm listening to the games, and it seemed like every single inning, someone was doing something wrong. And those mental errors and those actual errors lead to runs, and then, just inconsistency from all around.
And I will say, in that first game, the umpire did screw us over with that call, with the Adam Duvall out. So I think that really did make an impact in that first game. The Marlins at least could have taken 1 out of 3. And then the last 2, it was all pretty much a walk-off. All 3 games, I think, were walk-offs for the Cardinals, if I'm correct. So it was just a tough series to watch. But we're going to Chicago. We're going to Wrigley. They're going to have fans. So I think this is going to be for sure. It's going to affect the Marlins, especially since the young guys like Jazz, as we mentioned last live stream, Jesus Sanchez. These are guys who really haven't played in front of fans or full crowds in the major leagues. So this for sure will affect them, especially a spot like Wrigley, And I do want to talk about a little bit about Jesus Sanchez, but I see Eli hopping back.
Well, you brought up the fans, and one of the fish picks today is over under 33,333 fans in attendance. You think we get over 33,000 fans in Wrigley tonight?
It's Wrigley. I think we do. I think they do.
Yeah,
Definitely.
Yeah, and that would have to be arguably the biggest crowd they've played in front of all seasons. Well, I guess in Busch earlier this week, they played against some that were also like full capacity, and we saw how that went. So thanks.
Yeah, so I do want to talk about a little bit about Jesus. He made his debut. I mean, his second debut, but he came out again in the big leagues. He didn't have a good season last season at all. When he came out, he was not efficient whatsoever. This time around, he did have a hit and 8 at-bats, 125 batting average. So even though it was just a very, very small sample size, what do you guys think that this guy, Jesus Sanchez, the future this guy holds for this team, especially this season where I think he can break out into not a superstar, but for sure in the future be a superstar, but maybe this season just help out the team, not as expected?
I think with more, this is for every new hitter coming up, with more reps, the better he's going to get. But what I've seen from Jesus Sanchez so far, from just in the minor leagues itself, was how more controlled his swing was. Last year, his swing was very wild. There's a lot of moving parts, but now he's more controlled. He's more in tune with his body. He's actually hitting fastballs now, I guess. He's worked some good counts. He may have 2 or 3 strikeouts, but they haven't just been 1, 2, 3 and you're done. He's worked counts. I think he's going to be a nice offensive production this series against a Cubs rotation that's not that strong.
Yeah. What do you think about Jesus Williams?
For me, something I really like is his confidence, because you see him in the box, and I know everyone makes fun of it, but he's dancing, he's having fun, he's doing whatever he wants, and that's what we want to see. Because you see, like, for example, Jazz last year, they weren't letting him do anything, or he wasn't doing anything, and he sucked, to put it bluntly. And then this year, he's finally being himself, and all of a sudden, he's all-star caliber, maybe? But I just want to keep seeing him do whatever he wants in the box, do whatever he wants on the field, and just, yeah.
When it does come to Jesus, I think this second stint has been a lot more efficient for him. He's at bat. He's just doing a lot better. I will say, his first time he would strike out a lot quicker. It wouldn't be long at bats. This time it's been completely different. So let's hope Jesus could do what he did in the minor leagues up here in the majors, especially with those great numbers he was putting up. We're going to look into the lineup right now. We start with Jazz Chisholm at first batter. I think this is expected, but I think the most interesting thing is putting Miguel Rojas at 5th. I will say I did see Miggy going maybe around 5th. That's what I predicted, since especially his first game back, Starling Marte has just been carrying the team on his back. He's been playing great, batting great, especially at second bat. So then we have Jesus at 3rd, Duvall at 4th. I mean, what do you think about the lineup tonight? And I think there's something else we could mention is Jon Berti is at 3rd base, which I think they're pretty much left with that only option since their bench isn't that deep.
I think this is probably one of the most solid lineups we've had since the injury bug started biting us a little bit. Jazz is going to do his thing in the leadoff spot. Hopefully work some better counts. He's taken a little bit of another slump, but it's going to happen. It's really still his rookie year, so it's going to happen. Berti at 3rd, though, he's pretty good at 3rd base. For the few times they put him there, he hasn't disappointed very much. Hopefully he could get some production out of that 8th spot, though, and that 7th spot with Alfaro. He needs to get his bat going, too, if he wants to stay around.
Yeah, I mean, I will say Berti does not have an arm, so I think maybe at 3rd base, that's maybe the best spot you could put him at. William, what do you think about the Miami Marlins lineup tonight?
The lineup tonight, it's good. It's good. Maybe not for other team standards, but for us, it's good. I would have liked to see Miggy Rowe leading off, though, because he gets on base and he's more consistent at doing that than Jazz. But I get it. You want that speed at the top of the lineup. You want that explosiveness right out of the gate. But as long as they win, whatever lineup it is, it's whatever.
Kevin, you sound so much better. Thank you. For people
Yeah,
that listen to the first 15 minutes and were wondering like the goofy sound effect going on.
yeah. I had the
We
wrong,
got
I had the wrong
mostly
mic
figured
set
out.
up.
All right.
Yeah, and I do want to talk about the Chicago Cubs. This is a team that I think everyone expected them to be at the bottom of the NL East, not the NL East, the NL Central. This is a team right now that has a record of 39-30. They for sure surprised a lot of people. What do you guys think about the Chicago team and the lineup they're rolling with tonight? I mean, just the top 5 batters, I think, scare everyone. I mean, Peterson, Bryant, Baez, Rizzo, and Contreras. This might just impress a lot of Marlins fans, and not just Marlins fans, but a lot of MLB fans.
I think it's a strong lineup. They've always been a strong team since their rebuild ended in 2015. But yeah, those first 6 guys actually, Patrick Wisdom has been a very nice surprise for the Cubs. I think he's already hit close to 10 homers already, just crazy because he's came out of nowhere. But Cubs have always been good. They're managed good. Their rotation's their weak spot, but their offense makes up for it. You just gotta. This is a real test for the Marlins rotation, to be honest.
Yeah, and what do you think, William?
Judging by recent history, where we can't beat the Pirates, but we can beat the Dodgers, I expect a win. That lineup, it's good. Don't get me wrong, but there's a lot of inconsistency in it. Jock Peterson, you can't really rely on him, even though he's been hot. Javier Baez has been playing better, but he's not a superstar. I'm gonna say it. He's not a superstar. But it's a good lineup for today. I'll just say that.
Oof. You might have just blown a, you might have just started something here with not just Marlins Twitter, MLB Twitter, but with me as well, because I do think he is a superstar. So, and I do want to mention that this is I think a team that I think last time we played them, everything went well. Playoff win. So it's something good we should mention there. We should shout out the bullpen here. They've been pretty consistent as of late. Not now with these last couple of series. And I do want to mention this a little bit. What do you guys think about that closer role? Should it still be Yimi, or should they maybe be considering someone else like an Anthony Bender or a Richard Bleier, who I have brought up recently?
Yeah, we actually talked about it in our last episode. We kind of came to a consensus that it'd be nice to see Anthony Bender get the closing opportunity and put Yimi as an 8 guy and leave Anthony Bass in the high leverage situations, because he hasn't really thrived in the important roles. But I don't see a problem seeing what Anthony Bender can do, especially if he's a free agent after this year. If he performs well, he could earn himself a nice little contract.
I need to step in just because this misinformation has confused a lot of people. Anthony Bender is not a free agent for 6 years. He's a rookie. He signed a minor league deal, and with no major league service time. What determines whether you reach free agency is your service time, and he did not have any service time until this year. You need 6 full years of service time. They actually kept him down in the minors for the start of the year, so he doesn't even get a full year for 2021. He is under control potentially through 2027. If they want to, and if they can afford to pay him and all that. So I just wanted to clear that up, that he could be around a while. But then again, Nick Anderson was in this exact same position 2 years ago, and they traded him. And the reason why they got so much in return for Nick Anderson is because he still had like 6 years of control remaining. So just wanted to clear that up.
And I'm pretty sure they got Jesus Sanchez back from him. So funny coincidence there.
Yeah.
So he's not a free agent. Fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, William, what do you think about this closer role that the Marlins are going with right now? They have brought out Dylan Floro too, but I don't think he's been too productive at that closer role, if I'm correct. And with Yimi as well. What do you guys think about? What do you think, William, about the closer role?
I'm not opposed to letting other people step up. I still feel like Yimi should be the primary closer unless something goes catastrophically wrong with him. But I'm not opposed to it. If one day you just want to get Anthony Bender in there, just put him to close. You can get Dylan Floro. I was at a game where Dylan Floro closed it out. But yeah, it's as long as the team can win. That's all that matters.
Yeah, and when it comes to his closure role, Eli has said, I think everyone has said it, that I mean, Anthony Bender should be the closer right now of this team, but I think if we're talking closer and we're talking about high leverage situations, we should be talking about Richard Bleier, who's just been phenomenal this season for the Marlins. I mean, that one game where he just struck out the whole side in a bases loaded situation that Anthony Bass put him in. So Richard Bleier is one of those guys who I think has just been one of the more consistent players in the bullpen, but one that just nobody really has mentioned to even step into that close role. I think he for sure could be one of those who steps into that closer role. I don't know what you guys might think about that option.
I don't think Bleier would be the best option only because of his lack of velocity. I think you have to have some high velocity to be a closer. Movement is good too, but slow velocity with movement isn't always going to be your best option in the high leverage situations, especially save opportunities. Even though Bleier he's been pretty good. I think you need to have some velocity in the closer role. I think Bleier's doing just fine where he's at in the role he has.
Yep. And I do want to talk about trade deadline, which is a couple weeks away. Well, not a couple, but 6 weeks away. But I do want to get your stance on it, since I think we've gotten pretty much everyone else's stance where it's either a buyer or a seller. Where do you guys see the Marlins as of this moment on the trade deadline? Buying or selling?
Both.
Okay. And, like, how come you see them, doing both?
Oh, I was going to let Will say his opinion real quick. But
all right.
Don't put me in this. Keep me out of this. I don't want to talk about it.
I think both, because we have a couple pieces that could be shipped off, but by shipping them off, you could also be buying some pieces back, like we did last year. We sold pretty much 2 major league pieces for Starling Marte, so we essentially sold and bought at the same time. We traded Caleb Smith and Huberto Mejia, 2 major league pieces who they were on the major league roster. So yeah, I call them major league pieces for Starling Marte. I think we're going to buy and sell. I think it's going to be the same thing. I think Yimi's gone, to be honest with you. Marte depends what kind of return they're going to get, but I think Yimi's probably the most likely gone.
Yeah, and when it comes to Marte, I know we've talked about it, but he's only on a 1-year deal, so it's not going to be a huge haul what they're going to get back, since many teams are just going to consider him as a rental if they do wind up trading him. And as well with Jesus Aguilar, if they're going to sell him off, he's on a 1-year deal. Many guys are on a 1-year deal on this team, and I know William's nodding, so I do want to get his opinion on the trade deadline with the Miami Marlins very quickly.
I'm afraid they're going to blow it up. I don't think they will, but I wouldn't be surprised if they did, and that would hurt me from everywhere.
Okay. Yeah, I do agree with you. I mean, at one point you're thinking, if they sell, they're going to blow this thing up, because they do have something going here. They have good pieces that could help them out in the postseason. And we're going to get to this question right now by a Heat Fiends fan. But I do want to mention that this is a team that has a great farm system, and they can make moves with it to go up into this National League East, which is still technically close. I mean, the Marlins aren't too far from the Nationals nor from the Atlanta Braves in that third spot, that third spot in that National League division, and as well as the Phillies in that second place spot in the National League East. So the Marlins still have a chance at competing. That's why I still see them as a buyer, but I wouldn't be shocked if they sold. I know Eli knows this, that I've been saying this from the beginning. They should be buying and buying and buying. But I mean, now that you look at it, they can't beat the Cardinals, a team that had gotten swept. The Marlins really, it's going to be hard to see what they do, because they could sell players off, like you mentioned, Yimi. They could sell some players from the bullpen, some players in that starting lineup, or even the bench, and they could gain some prospects back, and then they could sell some farm system off, and they could bring in a guy like, you could bring a helpful player. And we have Alex Carver here joining us right now. We're going to talk a little bit about what are your thoughts on the Cody Poteet returning?
Yeah, what's up, guys? Awesome to see him back. Kind of unexpected. Not much has been said about him. He didn't go on a rehab stint. Nothing. They're just bringing him right back. So, yeah, apparently he's ready, which is great. Mattingly said that he's thrown a ton of bullpens. I kind of only worry because, like I said, no rehab starts, right? He didn't go to AAA, didn't go anywhere else. So maybe he pitched in an extended spring training game. That's my only guess. Mattingly didn't say that, but he had to have seen some kind of game action if he's ready to come back. So apparently he was throwing bullpens, and I think he probably got into an extended spring training game. And now he's ready to come back. And that's big because we'll see if he can get back to where he was before he got hurt. But before he got hurt, he was doing really well. One of the few guys that came up this year out of all of the guys that the Marlins called up and produced well. So kind of an under-the-radar guy, as I've talked about before with you guys, Kevin. But super solid, 4 pitches to him, mixes speeds, reaches like 95, 96, and he's all the way down to the low 70s with his curveball. So I really like Cody, man. He's had a kind of an interesting career as that unheralded guy, but cool to see him producing, and I'm excited to see him back.
Yeah, and what are your thoughts on the transactions that went on today with Miggy coming back, Isan going down? I think it was kind of expected that Isan and Brinson were going to go down. If there's someone that we had to choose from, it would be them for sure, since they just haven't been productive for this team.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, with Magneuris Sierra out of options, I guess Isan was the only other guy to pick. They still want to see if they can get something out of Sierra. Apparently, they're not willing to give up on him. We've talked about that before as well. If Isan wasn't here, I think that had to be the move. But with Isan here, not really doing well, he's up and down. Yeah, it's cool to see him play good at third base, but other than that, you can't produce at the plate. You're not going to stick in the majors unless you're Magneuris Sierra, I guess. But yeah, makes sense to see Isan Diaz go down. Where are they on him? I mean, I don't want to say anything too drastic, but this is now how many chances that this guy's got. It's good to see him get the versatility, able to play another position. But other than that, not much out of Isan. So it's another guy who I just heard Eli mention about Bender, who's under control for a while. Isan's under control till like 2027. They have him. So I think they try to move him, honestly, as a throw-in piece here at the deadline with whatever they decide to do there. So I see him going at this point.
Yeah, and I do want to ask you as well. I mean, what can you tell us about the minor leagues right now, since you're the one who covers mostly the minor leagues for the Marlins?
You can't spend the whole time talking about Troy Johnston. Be sure to mention more than one player.
I could do that, Eli. I could spend the whole time talking about Troy Johnston, but I won't. I talk about him enough on our show. I think you guys are probably already sick of that, but I'm still going to talk about him. So if you listen to my podcast, Eli, you're going to hear him. Anyways, other guys that are at Troy. AAA is rough right now, which kind of sucks for me because I'm actually going to Jacksonville next week. I picked the perfect time when the Marlins call up Jesus Sanchez and send all of these lower tier throwers, lower tier relief guys up. I was hoping to see Eddie, but now Eddie's in AA. So, man, I guess I should have picked Pensacola rather than Jacksonville, but it'll still be fun. They got some really low level talent there. I mean, when your standout player is Bryson Brigman, I mean, no knock on Bryson Brigman because I like him, but when that's your standout player, and then you got the Lewis Brinsons of the world and Isan Diaz knocking around and Eric Stout, who they picked up off the street, like these names that nobody knows, and they're at the highest level of the minor league system. That's a rough look. But yeah, it'll still be fun to go up there. Other levels, Pensacola, man, they have a doubleheader. They got rained out tonight. They have a doubleheader. Starter in the first game is Edward Cabrera, and their starter in the second game is Jake Heater. So I think that tells you all you need to know about Pensacola. Their offense has been doing good too. Blade is coming around. Burdick's a little streaky, but he's doing all right. And then they've had some nice surprises. Gerard's doing well. Nick Fortes doing really well. Single A advanced. You want to go there? Troy Johnston, as we mentioned. Connor Scott, he's been in and out of the lineup, but he's doing well when he's in there. It's a fun level to follow as well. They got some nice throwers or some nice pitchers as well, I should say. Zach McCambley, who has like 50 strikeouts and 4 walks. So another good one there. And then the lowest level is great too with Yuri Perez and a bunch of other guys. So there you go, Eli. I didn't only mention Troy Johnston. I gave you plenty of names. I hope that's sufficient.
Yeah, and speaking on Edward Cabrera, what can you tell us on him and his rehab starts, and when do you think he could return?
Yeah, so coming back obviously from rehab in June looked fantastic, overmatching those young kids. I felt really bad for some of those guys watching Edward go out there, and in 3 innings he racks up like 8 and 9 strikeouts. So apparently he is ready. He's reaching his peak velocity, which is like 98, 99 miles an hour, all the way down to 80 with that shapely curveball that he has. I mean, he's solid, dude. He's going to be really, really good if he can stay on the field. That's what we want to see tomorrow starting. And how they build him up. He's got to get his innings built up. He's only built up to like 50 or 60 pitches right now, I think. So you want to see him up to that like 75, 80 pitch mark before you bring him back. So I think it's 1 to 2 starts possibly in Double-A. Gauge where he's at against these upper tier level hitters. Maybe he makes a stop in Jacksonville. I think that's probably best if he does that and faces the highest level of minor league baseball before he comes back. So I would say 2 starts Pensacola, maybe 1 in Jacksonville, and if he's ready, they get him up.
Sounds good. And speaking of injuries, Sixto is throwing from 75 feet now, so that's a plus, meaning he could be making some rehab starts. What do you think about Sixto right now and where he is at, Alex?
Yeah, I mean, 75 feet. It's you still got to get to 100, which is his long toss, and then you have to go, back to your pens and your lives, and then get into some rehab games. So still a little bit. I think it's probably at this point, if he stays healthy and isn't pushed back again, I mean, I would probably say mid-August, honestly, Kevin, is my best guess as to when he will be back in AAA.
And we did see Jesus come up in the majors, so what were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, good, man. I think that, the swing's there. I think he maybe pressed a little bit that first game. We did see him hit that hard hit ground ball. His other at-bats were okay. I think he was kind of feeling the pressure a little bit. Last night, when he got his hit, right? He got his, or the night before last, I should say, got his second major league hit. So you like to see that. So yeah, it's just, being back here and getting used to being back here, especially as he mentioned, he wasn't really in the best place during the COVID year when he came up. So I think that's why you saw him struggle. He's back to having fun on the field now. We see him dancing around and stuff, which is great. So yeah, I mean, a guy that had an amazing start to the AAA season. I think if you see him not get out to the same start with the Marlins, don't worry about it. It's going to take him a bit to get used to being back here. He does join the team on a road trip as well. So take everything into account, right? And just don't panic on him yet. He's going to be fine.
Yeah, and I did want to mention that. I mean, it's going to take him a while to come to full strength with this team, having to go to Chicago, go to St. Louis at first, make his comeback. It's going to take him a while, and the Marlins do have a long time to decide what they want to do with him, especially a player with the talent this guy does have. It was a funny coincidence. I had sent him a DM a long, long time ago, response 2 days before, goes up to the major leagues. I wanted to interview him, and he says yes, and funny enough, gets called up to the major leagues. So that's going to take a while now for another interview to come. Eli, I mean, what else do you think we should mention before we go into first pitch?
I could just ramble about, me. I could talk about just about anything. But with Jesus, I guess the one thing I'll bring up is that an encouraging sign from his first couple of games is how hard he's hitting the ball. Yeah. I mean, he's had a few of those that were way over 100 miles per hour exit velo. I think he had one at 112. And just to put that into perspective, he hits the ball in these 2 days. He's hitting the ball harder than Isan has ever hit it at the major league level. Harder than a lot of pretty solid hitters, like harder than Corey Dickerson has ever hit it. And Corey Dickerson has had a great career. Then again, I mean, this is something we've seen from Brinson. This is something we've seen from, there are a lot of prospects we've seen recently in the Marlins that do scorch the ball, but it doesn't really turn into much. It's one little thing that's like encouraging about him with that. But I mean, Alex and I were kind of on the same page that his call up was overdue. We'd like to have seen him like at the beginning of the month. It really didn't take that long into the AAA season to see that he had nothing left to prove. Interesting decisions to come once, I guess, Garrett Cooper comes back, because he took a little baby step forward. Maybe we see Garrett Cooper by next weekend or so. So that's going to be interesting. When they bring back Cooper, how and exactly what his status is with the team. If Jesus does a really solid job, then all of a sudden Cooper is a guy that's a really prime trade candidate, as a guy who does a lot of things you like, but isn't an indispensable player, more of a role player. So I guess we could talk about Cooper a little bit, although he's not a factor in this series, but that's a guy that's been on my mind for sure, as someone whose fit with the team is very much like up in the air.
Yeah, he's been having an up and down year. That's all I could say. At the end, right before his injury, he was heating up, I will say. But I mean, in this moment, I think I'd rather have a guy like Jesus over Coop. And you did mention in one of your trade proposals, Eli, Garrett Cooper getting him out of going to Cleveland. I think that would be a nice trade for him. So that's it's a guy who I think you could think many different things of him. A good player when he wants to be, and he's just not consistent sometimes. But before his injury, he was very consistent. He had to walk off against the Mets. He was heating up. He was going back to 2020 Garrett Cooper.
It's funny to hear Eli mention the Indians because I know his favorite player is currently playing there. So, but yeah, maybe not a bad trade partner for sure.
Yeah. What do you think, Christian and William?
Yeah, I think he's eventually going to get shipped off to an American League team just because they have the DH. He's going to thrive in the DH spot. He can hit. He got off to a slow start, but he can hit. He's proven he can hit. It's just staying on the field has been his issue. I think the DH spot's going to help him tremendously on an American League club with his health issues.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a funny story with him. I mean, I was around when, 2019 spring training was going on, even the beginning of 2020 before everything got shut down. And I'm not going to say that they were out. I'm not going to say that the Marlins were saying, okay, we're going to trade him. But every time that they were asked a question about him, they kind of like shrugged it off. Like, I remember after one spring training game, somebody asked, hey, what'd you think about Garrett Cooper? And Mattingly's answer was like, oh, yeah, we already know who he is. Like, we know who Garrett Cooper is. So it was just funny to hear them kind of flip that script because of what he did in 2020. And now he's back here in 2021 and he's not been great and he's been injured. And as Eli mentioned, you have Jesus and then you have Lewin, who's right behind for the first base job. So does Garrett Cooper still fit the Marlins organization? I think that time is wearing off personally.
And something I do want to mention is I think the DH spot might have been the best spot for Cooper. I mean, that's where he belonged. I mean, we saw it in 2020. That's where he thrived. And that's why what you said, Christian, is very interesting, trading him to an American League team. I think that's what the Marlins might wind up doing with either Aguilar or Cooper if they trade one of the two. I do expect one of them at least to get shipped off this trade deadline. I mean, they have to choose between one or the other. So it's just something to take in and say, an American League team might help Cooper the most, might help him thrive. I mean, what do you think, Willem, about Cooper?
I've always been a Cooper guy. When he finally broke out in 2019, but I do expect him to be moved. I don't think they value him over Aguilar, and I feel like he'd also get a bigger package than Aguilar because he got more power, and he's shown what he can do.
Yeah, but we also have to think the future with Aguilar. I mean, he's on a 1-year deal. He could be a free agent next season and just leave because the Marlins really got Aguilar off of waivers, and look what he's turned into. He's turned into a great player for this team. So I think we also should have that under consideration.
Yeah, the secret to the Marlins being successful is to never make any, quote, big trades. Only do the little stuff. Only pick up people off of waivers, and then they turn to Aguilar. Only sign minor league free agents, and they turn into Bender and Birdie. And only make really small trades that end up getting you like actual impact players. Whenever they do the big stuff, the results are pretty mixed, but they have a good batting average on like these little subtle moves. So again, that's just another reason why the deadline is kind of exciting because there'll be moves of some kind for them to make. And even if they're not like the big splashy ones, like I can't tell you how many people I've already seen float ideas about trading Pablo Lopez in order to like get bats, do something else. It's so weird. I'm not even gonna like address it that much how ridiculous it is to trade him, especially at this particular moment. But it's still a fun time to like follow the team, even if they're not going to make that kind of move. There are other things that they could do, other creative things that. And yeah, so me, I'm coming up with more proposals, more like semi-realistic proposals that I'll share with people coming up soon. But Pablo is not one of them. Cooper, as Alex mentioned, as Kevin mentioned, was one that I did recently. And there's other ways that they could move things around to hopefully get more bats.
Yeah, and I will say, if the Marlins are in seller mode, completely trying to blow this thing up, I did, in my mind have Pablo as the guy, but I don't think the Marlins will end up trading him, especially if they want to build off the pitching rotation. But I do want to ask you, Alex, where do you stand on the trade deadline since I already asked Christian and William?
I mean, honestly, it's are they, or do they still think they can compete this year? And I don't think that they should think that. I think it should go in the completely opposite direction. I think they should be 100% sellers. And then it's what you have coming next. And those are the guys that they have said verbatim, that Jeter and Kim Ng have both said verbatim that they are committed to those guys that are coming up next. So I don't think any of those top 10, top 15 prospects get moved. If you are going to deal from prospect depth, you deal from the middle to back end of the prospect pool, and you go to, pitching and outfield in that regard, because that's where the Marlins are deepest. So, yeah, if they're going to deal prospects or throw them into any kind of a trade, you're looking at guys like that. And then, as you said, all these expiry contracts, I think most of them will probably go. Dickerson, if you can trade him, Duvall, hopefully that. I mean, the one question mark is Starling Marte. And I said this on our show, on our podcast with Daniel, being that the outfielders that we have, the top tier outfielders that we have in the system that are coming up with Connor Scott and Peyton Burdick and JJ Bleday, they are, I think, all three of those names and more. Cameron Meisner is another one. They're all at least 2 years away. So if you can get Starling Marte, who's one of the best players in baseball, who mentors these kids in the locker room, who's really good with this organization, who says he wants to be here, if you can get him on a 2-year deal, you do it yesterday. I don't understand the strategy of not approaching him. I know that these kind of things can be tough to get done during the course of a season. But, man, if he's saying he wants to stay here, he's saying he wants to be here, you hear the players, all the young kids talk great about him. He's got to be here, man. I don't think he's going to block any of those prospects by staying here. And as I said, he's one of the best guys in baseball, best players, best producers. So you got to keep Marte. But everybody else, I think, will go.
And I will say, now that I have you here, the Marlins have a great farm system, top 5. I mean, that's something they could use to their advantage if they're in the buyer mode. I don't see them trading top 15 prospects whatsoever, but they could trade maybe single A, low A, or maybe even some double A prospects. And what are some that maybe you could see getting shipped off?
Man, I mean, I guess the easy answer here, I mean, I don't like to talk about any of these guys that's potentially leaving, because I follow these guys from the time that they're drafted up until the time that they make their debuts. So if you want to talk about it realistically, though, without my personal feelings in the way, guys that could realistically deal and not feel it. I mean, I don't want to say this because I don't think he's gotten his fair shake yet, but Braxton Garrett is one. Just because he still has prospect pedigree. He has gotten a chance in the majors with the Marlins. Hasn't been great, but he still has some polish to put on to himself. I mean, especially in terms of his fastball command. He's really done well with his changeup. I wouldn't want to lose him right now, but if you want to talk about a name or the biggest name that I think that they could deal, it would be him. Another one that is a potential trade candidate right now, I mean, I guess you could say Gerard, but with the way he's hitting the ball, I wouldn't want to do it, how he's going to the opposite field. But he's an outfielder, and he's behind some of those other guys. But he does now have eligibility at first and, of course, at DH. So that's another one that has potential just because we have players like him, although he has some of the best power in the organization. But, yeah, like I said, he's more depthy. Outside of that top 15, he's probably more of a top 20 guy. That's another one. Yeah, I would say those are probably your two biggest names. If you would have asked me that question like last month, I would have said maybe they try to deal Cameron Meisner. I heard his name come up in a couple of trade proposals during the offseason, but I don't think they do that now with how this season has gone. So, yeah, I mean, those two are the biggest ones, and then there's others behind him that we could get into, but I think those two are your biggest names.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one thing I'll bring up when it comes to what prospects would be on the block, what I keep in mind is guys who were acquired in 2017 or earlier. If you were acquired during the Loria era, if you're not one of, quote, like Jeter's guys, then naturally those are the players that you would think are like more expendable. Now, it's not like a hard and fast rule because, one of the final draft picks that the Loria era made was Trevor Rogers, and he's at this point pretty rapidly ascended to like the centerpiece of their entire pitching organization. So it's not everybody, but Braxton Garrett would be a guy. Even Gerard Encarnacion, he originally signed way back in like 2015. Of course, last year to get Starling Marte, one of the key pieces they traded in that package was Humberto Mejia, who had been in the organization for a half decade before that. So I think that's kind of what I look towards like that. I mean, there's other factors that come into play, but generally it would be, even though Kevin kind of brought up the idea of like lower level prospects and younger prospects, I don't think that's the way. I think it might actually be those older guys that are approaching their early or mid 20s already at AA or AAA, if they were acquired under the old regime, then those are the ones that you're less connected to, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. And I will say, when it comes to Marlins trading for prospects, the Marlins are maybe some of the best team by doing this. I mean, they traded Sergio Romo for Lewin Diaz. They traded Nick Anderson for Jesus Sanchez. The Marlins have really done a good job when it comes to making trades for these kinds of players. I mean, the Marlins, when it came to getting Lewin, Sergio Romo is no longer on the Twins, so the Marlins, you would say, won the trade. With Nick Anderson right now, he's injured. Trevor Richards, who was traded as well in that trade. Jesus is up in the majors, so when you look at it, the Marlins really have had success when trading for minor league players or prospects in this.
I don't know. You could paint it like that generously. That's being nice because you point to the Nick Anderson trade, and he was one of the best relievers in baseball. Like parts of 2 years before he got hurt recently, and he still has time to get healthy and like contribute to the Rays the next couple of years. And Jesus Sanchez, as excited as I am about him, he hasn't done anything at the major league level yet. So it's a little too early to call that a W. For sure, especially when we were just talking about earlier in the show, the questions about the closer situation in the Marlins. If they Nick Anderson, it wouldn't be much of a question. Nick Anderson would definitely be that guy. He's kind of at an entirely other level. He's at a Anthony Bender-esque level, but somebody that has even more experience than Bender does. So it's been mixed for sure.
Yeah, you're right.
An interesting name to bring up with Eli's point about guys that were drafted by the old regime. An interesting name to bring up, maybe as a potential trade piece. And where do we think the Marlins are at on this guy? Maybe Eli can answer this question for me, or maybe any of your other guys that may have an opinion on this. Joe Dunand, he's injured right now. He had a great winter and he had a great spring training, but before that he was struggling in the minor leagues. So is this a guy, obviously he's hurt right now. I think he will get back before the trade deadline happens. If he comes back and he starts hitting pretty well, obviously we know what the Marlins have with third base with the decision to be made on Brian Anderson. But if Dunand comes back and starts hitting well and somebody approaches you with a trade proposal, for either a gap filler or another prospect package, do you do it?
Man, when you were saying, talking about that player, and I was thinking, it's going to be Dunand. He's probably going to mention Dunand. So I could see the Marlins trading Dunand. But right now he would be up in the majors if it weren't for his injury. I think he would be up, especially in the spot where they are with the need of infielders. I think he would be over Morero right now, who's up. So I do think he has some value to the team. So it's like you would have to throw it up in the air. You don't really know what the Marlins are going to do with a guy like Dunand.
Yeah, he definitely would have been up at some point during these past few weeks with both BA and with Miggy Rowe out, and even with Miggy Rowe back. Absolutely. I don't know how much trade value he has at the moment because it was a great winter, as we documented like every single day on Fish Drives, and it was a good spring training as well. It's just because the track record before that we know was very uneven in pro ball, and because of his age too, where now he is he's closing in on 26 years old later this year. That if you just haven't done anything in the majors yet, and your raw tools aren't that special, he has shown like some interesting stuff during the winter and spring in terms of the actual batted ball quality that he has. Like he could really, the exit velocity that he's getting is all of a sudden much higher than it used to be early on in his career. He said all the right things to Fish Drives about like what he's trying to do defensively, and he does seem improved in that regard as well. But I mean, he is something, but he's not like the centerpiece of like anything that gets you really excited yet until he actually, proves it in the major leagues. So yeah, I wish all the best to him. I hope he gets back real soon. Because I was pretty hyped for him, and like the steps that he took last year to like become a better player, even when the team was kind of out on him. They didn't really like give him much of an opportunity around their alternate training site or any of that stuff. They kind of ignored him and just said, do whatever you want. And it seems that he was doing the right things. It just, we haven't, unfortunately, because of the injury, we haven't been able to like see him put it all together.
Yeah, and I don't want to talk to that like it would be a centerpiece deal like him for a bunch of prospects or something like that. It'd probably just be like a deal sweetener with a bigger player, right? Aguilar or whatever they do. But yeah, it could be like a guy to throw in. He has that pedigree with A-Rod, of course. Again, we talked about the winter and the spring training campaigns, which are both great. If he comes back and starts doing well for the Shrimp and, for a couple weeks before the deadline, I think he could help sweeten the pot to bring back something a little bit better. And as we stated, it's part of the old regime. They're not really married to him, right? So yeah, I mean, I think it's an interesting topic and an interesting point in the career of Joe Dunand. So I just wanted to ask that question.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we will go into predictions, Eli. What do you think?
Yeah, some predictions.
Yeah, I wanna get Christian's thoughts on the predictions for the series, Cubs and Marlins.
So like wins and losses, right?
Yeah, you know which games they'll win, which ones they'll lose.
Get creative and be bold.
Yeah.
I actually think they take game 1 and game 3. Alec Mills has game 3, even though the Marlins are going for a bullpen day, possibly. But I think we win today. I think Jerick Arrieta is going to be a little bit of a struggle tomorrow, just because of his past successes, and he still has it. He's been struggling with injury bugs, but he still has good stuff. And the Marlins don't really like sinkers all that much, especially from Jake Arrieta. But yeah, I think game 1 and 3 are the games that we come out on top.
All right. What do you think, William?
I'm going to say it. I'm going to be the one who says it. Peter Pratt, he'd like this. I say a sweep. The pitching is not good for the Cubs. We matched up with them at the perfect time. And, you know, you got Poteet coming back, hopefully doing well. You got Pablo tomorrow, who you know is going to do well. And you got most likely Zach Thompson. Hopefully he can do well as well. And I see it as a definite possibility they sweep.
Alex, what are your predictions here?
It's a tough series, man. Then you got back-to-back day games after tonight. Tomorrow's kind of a quick turnaround. Tonight's game probably won't end until probably 11:30. And then you got a 2:00 game tomorrow, our time. So, I mean, it's kind of tough in that regard. I'm not betting against Pablo Lopez, though. You know, so the question marks are tonight and then the bullpen game there on Sunday. I'll go 2 of 3. I'll say Poteet comes out strong tonight and does well. Goes about 6 innings, quality start kind of stuff. That would be great to see out of him. And then Pablo wins tomorrow, but I would say that they'll probably lose the 3rd game, and then you have to support Pablo, which the Marlins have had issues doing. So I'm gonna go. It could go 1 and 2. I'm gonna say that we get 2 out of 3.
Yeah, I'm gonna go 2 out of 3. They won the first 2. That 3rd game, I think they could win it, especially if Zach Thompson comes out well. But I will say 2 out of 3. I was very close to saying a sweep, but 2 out of 3. Poteet comes in strong tonight, has a good outing. Same with Pablo, especially if the Marlins give him run support, which has been you don't see it when Pablo Lopez is pitching, but I think if they give him run support, we'll be good. When it comes to Zach Thompson, I think if Zach Thompson comes out here and just gives us 4 or 5 innings like he did last time, the Marlins should be in a good position to sweep. But I will say 2 out of 3, just to be more realistic.
Yeah, 2 out of 3. They lose tonight. They win on Saturday and Sunday. Jesus Sanchez hits the first home run of his career. Jazz Chisholm Jr. steals home at one point. I think Yimi Garcia has a good weekend. He picks up a couple saves on Saturday and Sunday. I think they'll do fine because it's one of those situations where the team is better than they've shown recently. I'm not a huge believer in this, but I know Alex and I'm sure most of you guys are probably aligned on this, how important Miggy Rowe is to having around this team and what he does both like literally on the field and what he does like emotionally and how much that helps. I mean, to me, I just think that a lot of things contributing to me. I mean, people were kind of upset with how they kind of punted on Wednesday's game, right? I mean, you guys were furious. I think everybody was furious about how they sat like 3 of their best hitters and then didn't bring them in as pinch hitters and then didn't go to the bullpen. And but because by giving those guys all that extra rest, I think that will benefit them this weekend. I think that has some indirect effects the next couple of days. So I think overall it's going to be a pretty solid weekend, but it doesn't change the course of their season. I don't think there's anything like super significant about it, but I think it'll be a fun weekend.
I'm going to start keeping track of these, Eli, because now you have Anthony Bender with a game-winning hit. I think you said like a walk-off or something. Now you have Jazz stealing home. I mean, I'm gonna like start writing these down and look back on them.
Yeah, well, when you play against Javier Baez, be like Javier Baez. That's what in the games when he played against Acuna, he like embraced his inner Acuna. He kind of has that instinct in him to make some bold decisions when he knows that the world is watching and when he's being compared to the very best in the game and the most dynamic players. That's a lot of fun. Yeah. So I think it'll be an interesting weekend. For Christian, for William, for Alex, Kevin, Eli, Isaac Azut no-showed us. Ethan Badowski no-showed up, but he is attending the game tonight, and I think on Saturday and Sunday he'll be at all the games in Chicago. So you, aside from following everybody here, follow Ethan Badowski for updates live from the Wrigley Field bleachers and hopefully the press box. Fingers crossed. As always, Fish Stripes Live. We're here for you every series. We'll be back with another preview for the new homestand. So as always,